Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erica with Memory Box Candle Co. And I make videos all about the journey of starting a candle business. And today's video, I am going to be walking you through how we fulfill a wholesale order from start to finish. So includes when we get the order, how we go about organizing everything, figuring out the materials that we need, because everything is made to order for wholesale. So with wholesale, you do have to be very organized and know that you have the materials to fulfill the order. So I'm just going to be taking you through the entire process of one of the orders that we got from Faire, from organizing everything, making the order, labeling, packaging it up, everything that goes into it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So right when we get an order on Faire, the very first thing that I do is I want to accept the order and then put a ship date. So we have a ship date of 4 to 7 days from the day that the customer places the order. We like to work very quickly, and I've heard that having quicker lead times will encourage buyers to want to purchase from you because they know that you can get it shipped out pretty quickly. So that is the first thing that we do is I accept the order and I choose the ship date. So after I've accepted the order, I've chosen the ship date, the very next thing that I do is I go onto Inventory and I have to create a production run for this order. So I look at that order, I see the products that they ordered, and I put it in as a production. And this is just so everything is organized, because with us getting quite a few wholesale orders, to be honest, on Faire, I don't want anything to get mixed up. I don't want anything to get overlooked. And having everything on Inventory keeps Chris and I organized together so that we're able to look at everything, know what hasn't been done, know what's in the process, and know what has been finished. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And I do also want to let you know that Inventory is actually sponsoring today's video, which is super exciting and very fitting because of the fact that they are literally a lifesaver when it comes to organizing for wholesale. And not just wholesale, I mean, we really just most recently have gotten all of these wholesale orders in over the past couple of weeks, but I've used Inventory for the past like 3 years or so, like pretty much since the very beginning of my business. And I recommend that to anybody just getting started. If you are just getting started in your business and you have raw materials and finished products, you need an inventory-based software. Even if you think that you're really small right now and you don't need it because you can kind of keep track of everything, once you get going and once you start growing with your business, you're really going to need something to get organized and keep track of everything. So I'm going to just show you over here in Inventory just a couple of things that are extremely helpful, and then I'm going to show you the production. So the main thing about Inventory is that there's the materials section and then there's the product section. So what we had to do was make sure that we had all of the materials first before we created any products. So you want to make sure that you have all of the materials that you're using on here and how much you have in stock of each of your materials before you go on and add any products. So for instance, for this wholesale order, there's a lot of these little gold 10s. I think this wholesale order for today's video that I'm going to be fulfilling is all gold 10s. So what we had to do was we had to make sure that we went in and put in the exact amount used for each of the materials so that when we put it in the production run and we fulfill that order in production, it's actually going to automatically take from these materials. And that saves time, it saves headaches, it does everything so well and automatically like that, so that it's automatically pulled from the stock of your materials. So because these gold 10s are a new product for us and they're really only available right now for wholesale or like bulk events when people reach out for inquiries and stuff like that, we actually had to go in and for all of the scents, add in that as kind of an additional product and add in the proper materials and quantities of those materials to make sure that it's going to be pulled properly so that all of this information is constantly up to date. We want to make sure that we have a a clear understanding of the materials that we have on stock so that we aren't promising that we're able to create something when we don't actually have the materials, which is like the worst thing. So I'm going to go over to production right here, and I'm going to blur out anything that we've already done because it does include companies' names that we have completed or that's planned for the future. So in this production area, basically what it is it's just what you have planned, what's in progress, and what's been completed. So if I click on new production run right here, I'm going to type in just Faire order. Now we've already fulfilled this at this point when I'm filming this video, but I'm just going to show you as an example what it looked like when we went in and added this in as a new production run. So there's two options right here. So there's making inventory to stock, and this will increase stock levels and sync to your shop. So we don't want that. So I'm going to actually click on fulfilling an order because this is not going to affect product stock levels, so that when we are going through and fulfilling that order, it's not going to actually pull the materials and then add those to my Shopify store. It's just going to pull the materials, and it's not going to affect the stock levels of your current products. So I'm going to go in here, and I have the order pulled up on my phone. So this is exactly what it looks like when I go in. And this is just showing all the items that we need to make in this specific wholesale order. Now, the one thing that is slightly different for us with our regular website and our wholesale website is that the names on our wholesale line are different than the names on our regular website. So I have all of the nostalgia labels that have names like Trips to Nowhere, Summertime, Vinyasa Flow. But on the website, it's lavender and rosemary, linen and sea salt, and mango and coconut milk. So I did more basic labels, more basic scent names on those labels. But we just put it in as these because it's the same exact scents and it's the same exact thing, instead of having to basically duplicate that process and just have it under a different name, which wouldn't really make too much sense. So I'm just going to go through and add these in. And they had gotten 10 of these candles in each of these scents. So they got a total of 60 tins. And that is the last one. So we have 6 different scents and 10 candles each. Now down here, this is really important to put. So on Faire, you do actually have a due date in terms of when you need to get it shipped by. So I go on here and I add in the ship date. So this is just as an example. So let's say they place the order on the 1st at 5 p.m. The reason why I put that on there is because our very first wholesale order actually canceled within 24 hours, but we had already made the order. Luckily it was small, but we had already made the order. So now we know that we wait 24 hours before we make an order on Faire. That was something that we definitely had to learn. So I'm going to click save right there. And then what this is going to do is it's going to put it over into the planned area. So all of the planned areas can be organized based on when the due date is, and that's typically how I organize it, is by when the order is due. And then when we are ready to start the order, I will put it in progress. And you can click on it and see exactly the materials that are needed for each one of these, which is so nice. And again, when you're putting this in here and you're starting a production run, Inventora will let you know if you do not have enough materials to fulfill that order. So if I had been typing that in, let's say I needed 100 of Vinyasa Flow, but then it popped up like, hey, you don't have enough fragrance oil to complete this order, then I would be like, okay, I need to order fragrance oil like ASAP. So that would be something that is really, really important to know, and that's extremely helpful for this whole production. So it's really just to keep organized, make sure that you are keeping track of your materials, making sure that you have enough materials to complete these wholesale orders. So getting started with this order, the first thing that we are doing is we are unboxing all of the little tins and taking off the plastic part. Now, I really, really wish that there wasn't this much plastic on here, on these tins, but I mean, I appreciate that they're not wanting to get them all scratched up. And I think it's so funny. You can see my pink belly and my pink gloves as I am going through and unwrapping a bunch of these. Now, we had multiple wholesale orders that contained these little gold minis in them. So even though this customer purchased 60 of these tins, I still went through and I unwrapped however many we were needing to pour that day, to be able to fulfill enough for another wholesale order as well. So once I got everything unwrapped, then it was time to go through and wipe them down and clean them with alcohol. This is just to make sure that there is no dirt or debris or anything that's going to prevent the wick sticker from actually adhering to the bottom of the tin. So now it was time for me to go through and sticker them. And yes, this can be a little bit of a tedious process, but it kind of goes by quickly because you're doing everything in bulk and kind of like an assembly line style. So going through and then adding in the wicks into these little tins. And we made our own Eco 1 wicks. So I got these wick tabs that are about 3 millimeters. And Chris went through and through a regular 6-inch Eco 1 wick, he's able to make 4 of these little mini wicks. And it works out really good. It is, again, a little bit more work, especially for him to have to go through and do that, but it does save money, and we have actually had Eco 1 wicks for a little while now. From when I used to use them all the time in my jars. And then now Chris and I are just going through and kind of organizing them in certain amounts so that they're all kind of lined up right next to each other. And then Chris realized after pouring these ones that it would be easier to actually have them a little bit more separated. And we were just trying to do the best that we could with the table space that we had. But he realized on the next pour that it would be a lot easier to actually go through and organize it by scent instead of just having them all next to each other and then trying to remember which ones that he had already poured. And now we are ready to pour, so he is just going through and heating up the pouring pitcher and getting it wiped out from the last time, making sure there's no residue of anything, and also getting the pouring pitcher heated up, pouring in the adequate amount of wax as well as fragrance oil, and then pouring that into a piston funnel because it makes it a lot easier to go through and pour into these little candle tins that we have. And then the main thing with these little tins is that they are kind of deceiving when you're filling them up. It can be a little difficult to know how high you're actually filling them up to. So the best way to do it, and the best way that we found, is to kind of fill it up almost halfway and then go through and then refill it back to the top and really just kind of look and try to see that you're filling it up to the top on those ones. So then once we're done with pouring all of those, so Chris basically went through and just finished up the pouring process for all of the different fragrances in that order. And then once that's done and they have solidified completely, which we like to let it solidify at least a day before we go through and trim the wicks on them. Then I went through and I trimmed all of the wicks on all of these little candles. And I like to leave the wick length maybe a little bit longer than 1/4 of an inch on these. It's not a perfect amount or like the exact same on all of them, but about a little bit longer than 1/4 of an inch. And then once everything is trimmed on all of those, then I go through and I put the lids back on. And then once all of the lids are on those, then I go through and make sure that I'm adding the warning labels to the bottom of the candles. So I have found that it's actually better to put the warning labels on first before you put the sticker on top of the candle, because typically when you put that on top of the candle, it's kind of like, okay, it's done, it's finished and ready to go. So I would advise to actually put the warning label on first, and that will just kind of save you from wondering, you know, if you put the warning label on. And we do double check it when we are doing that because you obviously want to make sure that you are putting the warning label on. And these stickers are actually really easy to put on. They are just some glossy 2-inch round labels. And then I just went through and finished up the labeling process on all of those. And then now it is the final process of fulfilling the wholesale order. So at this point, we have the invoice or the packing slip printed out. And Chris is just going through with a highlighter and then highlighting everything in that order that he sees and make sure that it's there. And then we're going to pull it and then pack it. Now that box right there that you're seeing him package up these tins in, this is actually the box that these tins come in. So we're reusing the packaging, reusing the box. And of course it works out perfectly because not only are we utilizing and reusing, but we're also able to use pretty much the perfect size for these tins to fit 24 of them into. So we tape down the sides just in case there's anything that happens during transit. If they get rattled or anything like that, we don't want them to open up. And then Chris went ahead and did the same thing with the other candles. Now with this order, I believe they had ordered 60 candles of these, and there's 24 that fits in these little boxes. So Chris pulled out this other size box. I believe it is a 9 by 7 by 4 or by 3. I'll put the measurements up on the screen for you. And they actually fit a little bit different than the other box. So we have to fit them in a little bit differently. But with that, he actually went ahead and added in a Cool Shield bubble wrap to the bottom to kind of hold down the flaps that are at the bottom of the box, because sometimes when those are sticking up, it can be a little bit more challenging to put the candles in there. And it also helps with actually keeping the candles cool as well, which is again an extra step that we're doing during the summer. This is not going to be a typical thing once the weather starts cooling down, but it is something that we are very much taking seriously and into consideration when we are packaging up these orders. So I will also put the size of this bigger box as well on the screen because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But now Chris is going through and using the Cool Shield bubble wrap to wrap up these packages because again, as much as this kind of seems like it is something that is a lot of extra work, it's well worth it to make sure that these items are packaged up well and that they're not going to arrive in a melted or poor condition for our wholesale customers. So we're just doing the best that we can with making sure that everything is packaged up well. And then once everything is in the box and kind of ready to go, the last things that we are including in there is a sample pack. So with all of these new retailers that are purchasing from us, we have a sample pack that is going to be going to them that is basically all of our other scents that we offer that are in just little wax melt forms for them to smell. And that's just so that they know our other fragrances that we offer, and then also so they know, which ones they want to purchase from us next time. And then we finish off the box with the fragile stickers as well as a protect from heat. And then we take it on over to the scale to get the weight. So this is the final process of getting the weight, and then on Faire we're able to go on and input the dimensions of the box as well as the weight. So at this point, you go on to Faire on the shipping section, you add in the dimensions, you add in the weight. I actually really like printing off the label from Faire instead of inputting all the information into Pirate Ship. And typically I love Pirate Ship, but using Faire, it's actually really, really simple and really easy, and I love doing it that way. So then we go ahead, pay for the label, print it out, stick it on the box. We take it on over to UPS, and then it's on the way to the customer. So that is the full process, step by step, from the moment that we get a wholesale order until the moment that we print out the shipping label and drop it off at the post office. That is how we fulfill a wholesale order on Faire. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video. Again, another huge thank you to Inventora for sponsoring today's video. I just love them so much, and they've made this whole process so much more helpful. So if you're interested in joining Inventora and getting your business organized with all of your materials and your products and all of that, I do have a pinned comment down below that you can join Inventora and get yourself organized. So with that, I am going to end today's video right here. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave it a big thumbs up, as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, don't forget to follow me over on Instagram at Memory Box Candle Co. And I will see you in my next video.